Hello fellow gamers, skaters, and filmers, to my second ever tutorial in session. This one here we're going to be talking about how to film lines. So really there's just two things you need to keep in mind when filming lines, is that you want to keep everything in view, meaning your skater and the obstacles, and that smoothness is king. That's pretty much it. I know it can be a little difficult when your skater is moving around at Mach speed doing a bunch of shit, but we're going to try to simplify things a little bit today. And before we get started, I'd like to give you guys some tips on how to become better filmers when it comes to lines. The first and most obvious one I have is to start simple, and not just how you're filming things and trying to simplify the filming process, but even just the tricks you're trying to capture. You'd be surprised on how cool a really simple line can look if it's filmed properly. The next tip I have is less of a tip and more of a guideline in relation to your speed and what kind of filming techniques you should be using to capture that. So if your skater's moving around at Mach speed, you trying to capture what he's doing super tightly and close to him with a really narrow lens, like a fisheye, it's not going to work. It's going to look jarring, it's going to look janky, it's going to look stupid, and you're probably going to have to mess around with like the play rate and make it play in slow motion and stuff like that to make it look sort of believable. So again, if your skater's moving around at fucking Mach speed, just use long lens, use a wider field of view. And then also in relation to speed, try to keep your speed consistent within reason, right? I know sometimes it's really difficult if you're doing, you're bombing down a hill in the middle of your line. It is what it is, but it's basically just sudden jolts of speed. Stuff like pushes when your skater is pushing off the ground with his foot. Trying to, again, accurately capture that and smoothly capture that can be really, really challenging. So again, if you're gonna do a line and it looks like your skater is moving around way too fast or too inconsistently, try to slow it down. Redo the same line, but do it a little bit slower. For example, in the last clip that I just showed you guys, I feel like I was going a little bit too fast, so I went ahead and re-recorded the line a little bit slower, gave myself one less push, and went at a little bit more of, let's say, a cruising speed. And the result, at least in my opinion, turned out a little bit smoother and a little bit more, let's say, presentable. That's it for the tips and tricks portion, so let's get started with the actual tutorial. Alright, so typically when you're filming skateboarding, you got two routes that you can go down. You can go with the long lens or more kind of cinematic route, usually reserved for, bigger tricks, like something really big down a staircase or something like that. Or usually when you're filming a line, you'll go with something a little bit more narrow, like a fisheye. So that's what we're going to try to do today. And for the purpose of the video, I just have this quick line that I did in the shopping mall map. Kickflip, big spin out, and then a front bigger heel or switch front bigger heel, nose grind, kickflip out, and then a tray flip over the gap. Right over here, I think this is a good clip because right when we land from the kickflip, notice how slow we're going, and then we do one push and then we accelerate kind of a lot. So it's going to be a little difficult to navigate around that and try to get the smoothest clip possible. Going slow and then kind of not going slow anymore. So we're gonna have to try to figure that out and try to, again, navigate around that to get the smoothest clip possible. Do keep in mind, I'm assuming that you know how to use the replay editor or that you're familiar with the basic controls of the replay editor. If you're not, I do have a full in-depth tutorial on the replay editor system for session on my channel. But I will also keep that in mind, so throughout the video when I'm using certain buttons or whatever, I'll try to call them out so that you're at least familiar with what buttons I'm using. So the first thing we're going to do is press square or the X button if you're on Xbox to get to our free cam. This is basically going to allow us to freely move our camera wherever we want to, and then to get the desired lens, you're going to press the options button or the start button, go to camera, and then camera lens, you can change this to a few different options. We're looking for fisheye or fisheye wide. The regular fisheye is quite narrow. It's very good, and it's a good lens, don't get me wrong, but I prefer the wider one. Again, just personal preference, I just prefer this lens. I use this for pretty much almost every line that I film. Now that we have our lens and our camera type selected, a few things we have to make sure that are good before we start. By default, when you open up the replay editor, the keyframe type should be set to smooth or the green ones by default. But if you want to check, just hold down the right bumper and then press the left bumper, and then you'll notice at the bottom left of the screen there, it changes from smooth to linear keys to constant keys. Just make sure they're on smooth keyframes, or again, the green ones. They're going to make things a little bit more smooth, and definitely way better to use that when you're filming and doing actual camera positioning movements and stuff like that. So again, I usually like to set my keyframes with the editor or the HUD turned off. Just gives me a better visual representation of what I'm actually seeing. So do keep in mind, it might get confusing, but whenever I place or delete a keyframe, there will be a little kind of notification on the bottom left of the screen there. So keep that in mind. So again, we're pretty much good to start. I have my camera keyframe selected. They're set to smooth. So we're just gonna start. And actually the first thing I wanna do is actually trim this clip just a little bit, because right here at the start, my character's not moving and then he pushes. So I just wanna kind of fast forward a little bit, maybe to the, let's say, second push, right around here. Hold down the right bumper and then just click on the left stick. And then you'll notice on the timeline, there's like little brackets there. So while still holding down the right bumper, just press triangle or Y on Xbox, and that will basically kind of trim your clip. And now we're good to actually start. My general philosophy whenever I'm filming lines or sequences of tricks is I'm trying to capture, I guess, key moments from the line, and then hopefully once we put keyframes at all of those key moments, they kind of string together cohesively to make a really cool line. We will probably have to go back in there and then, you know, delete and add some keyframes here and there to make it work, but essentially that's the general gist of what you're doing. You're just trying to capture, again, cool moments and essentially take pictures of them by using keyframes, and then hopefully they kind of string together. So keep in mind too, camera sway, didn't really talk about that yet, but another kind of added touch of realism is imagine yourself following a skateboarder and following, you know, you're trying to capture his movements on a camera. If you're following that skater, he jumps, you move the camera up, there's going to be some sway to the camera, you're not going to swing it completely vertically up without moving it left or right. So if you want to add some sway, hold the right bumper, and then with the triggers left or right will allow you to add some swing to the camera. So let's place our first keyframe here. We got our camera keyframes, we're all good to go. One down here, and then right when he pops, let's say onto the mani pad or right before he pops. Let's go right about here, maybe a little lower. Tell the camera, do that. When he lands, right around here. Let's try to show off that it is in fact a manual. And then when he lands, we'll place another one. You could put it, I guess, over here when he pops the trick, but if you look at the top of our timeline, our keyframes would be really close together, and in my opinion, when your keyframes are really close to each other, it makes it look more robotic and janky. So I usually try to space them out as generously as I possibly can. Obviously sometimes it doesn't work out and you need to put them closer, but for now let's go with this. And then for the before he pops the switch bigger heel, let's go a little bit, let's try to go flush with him, maybe a little bit to the left so we can see his feet and kind of try to have an idea of what trick he's about to go for. And then once he lands the trick, let's again stay kind of to his left side and tilt that camera a little bit more to the left. That's great. We're gonna wait all the way till he pops to get onto the bench to place our next one. Let's go right about here. This is pretty good because I can see his feet and I can pretty well see the obstacle that he's about to skate. So let's start straightening out our camera. When he gets onto the bench, let's go right about here. Actually seems pretty good, maybe a little lower. Tilt our camera a little bit to the right, and then once he lands, we're going to place another keyframe right here behind him, and then start to straighten out our camera. And then right over here he'll push, so right after he pushes, maybe, or maybe right as he's pushing, let's put another keyframe over here, start tilting the camera that way, because I want to right about here put the camera on, again, his left side, but I want to position it in a certain way that I can pretty clearly see that there's a gap coming. And then also, again, his foot placement, I want to be able to look at his foot placement and see like, yeah, this guy's about to pop a tray flip. And then when he lands, maybe we move our camera to the edge, a little closer to the edge, a little closer, straighten out our camera. And then this whole section at the end here where he's just rolling off, let's actually move our camera a little bit closer to the edge, a little lower, and then really show off the gap. Maybe tilt the camera, and then place our keyframe. So there you go. These are all the keyframes that we have so far. Let's go all the way to the start and then press the left bumper, close our HUD, and let's see what we got. I mean, that's already pretty good. I honestly don't really know if I need to change anything. Just kind of upsetting for a tutorial. Maybe here we could argue that he's a little bit out of center of the frame here. So let's move our camera and place a keyframe here. That looks fine. That looks pretty good, honestly. You see the board really well. Like the board is like flush in the middle of the frame here. Like you could argue maybe lifting the camera a little bit here, but I don't really see the need to do that. That looks great. Again, maybe here when he lands. Like it's tough because right in the middle of the keyframes, he comes back to the center of the frame. Actually, not entirely. Let's put one here and see what it looks like. Okay, that looks good. A little jolty with the acceleration here after the push. Right? Like we're going a certain speed. I think the slowdown is done properly. But I don't know. Really, let me know in the comments if you guys would fix this. I think it's fine. But you could argue it is a bit jolty. So let's see, just for argument's sake, if we delete the one after the push. Yeah, but then you see, then we get this. And fixing this is honestly going to be a lot more difficult in my opinion. So maybe we do just leave the keyframe. I should have just not done anything. Let's see, we'll put one here and see what it looks like. It's not bad. Yeah, honestly, I think that's fine. Like both are okay in my opinion. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. The last little touch of realism we're gonna do here is add some camera shake. So left or right on the D-pad will cycle through your other types of keyframes. Once you land on camera shake, you're good to go. There's a few different things we can do here. The baseline one, or the easiest one, is basically just find a value that you're comfortable with or that you think looks okay and just set it at the start of the clip. And now through the entirety of the clip, the camera shake value is going to be set at 30. So you see like this natural kind of camera sway. That's literally what this keyframe does. So you'll just have this natural kind of sway going on at a set pace throughout the entirety of the clip. Which honestly doesn't look bad, but for like added realism, which honestly not many people will notice, but for a kind of added realism, usually what I like to do is maybe here, since we're not really doing any crazy movements with our camera, you know what I mean, we're going to keep it at 20, but once we start lifting our camera a little higher to follow the skater, let's maybe crank it up to 30, and once he lands we'll go back. And just little things like that, kind of little increments. Like here, there's not really too many crazy camera movements, so keeping it at 20 is fine. Let's say right about here, boost it back up to 30. Here, let's say 25, and then when he lands, 20. Last little push here, go back up to 25. And then drop it all the way down to 20, and then maybe at the end of the clip we drop even lower. Which again, doesn't like add a super noticeable amount of realism. Well, maybe here. I'm talking about the camera, yeah? Maybe here we kind of center him a little bit. All right, and let's see what the finished product actually looks like all put together. Easy as cake, boys. That was easy as that. So I sincerely hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you guys did learn something, and also, like I said, if you guys want a way more in-depth tutorial about the entire replay editor, what every single button does, and how to film in long lens, how to film in fisheye, how to film in a bunch of different ways, check out my other tutorial I have on my channel. I hope you guys have a good day. Peace out.